Hi, welcome back, folks. This is our sixth episode of Ask the D&D Professor. I'm usually here, pretty much expected at this point, but I'm Elizabeth McLean. I'm kind of the person in charge, for lack of a better term, at Open the Gates Gaming, and I'm joined by Caitlin Martinkus, and we also have Steph here, better known as Pocket Phoenix. So, Caitlin, I'm going to let you introduce, or really reintroduce, because this is your second time, I think. Yeah.
Sure. Hi, I'm Caitlin Martinkus. I teach music theory. Was at the Cleveland Institute of Music, but I will begin at Penn State in the fall. I also work with the Pennsylvania Chamber Orchestra in some arts admin roles, which is pretty fun and exciting. And for Open the Gates, I have done a lot of the people-facing content. So our explainer videos, and I love working at the booth or at conventions, and just being your resident forever novice D&D player to test our tools.
It's incredibly helpful because we're swimming in DMs, which is a little unusual. So it's really, really great to have Caitlin be like, no, I'm not running anything. I am a player, because that's a perspective that you can lose, I think, from too much time on the other side of the table. But yeah, really excited. I love that I'm going to switch back and forth and call you both Steph and Pocket. We'll get there. We'll figure it out. But yeah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I am basically a lifelong gamer, giant nerd. I've been around. I've recently gotten into D&D over the past, couple years at this point. Played weekly with Liz, and I also co-ran a live stream. We haven't streamed in a few years, so but we had a lot of fun with it. So it gives me a unique perspective.
Yeah, it's funny. Once you started talking about, I didn't realize it's been that long, but it has, hasn't it? It's been like a couple years. We've been
Yeah.
playing D&D.
Yep. Yeah, because I've been
I think
playing with you
it's been
guys
multiple
for over a year.
adventures, multiple DMs. Gosh, that's wild. No, you took to it like a duck in water. I think you'd done what, like a one shot or like one little adventure before?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I'd done like a one shot that I was like, I've always wanted to try it. And so I did. I was like, I really, really enjoy this. So then it just kind of went from there, and the opportunity presented itself to be able to play more often. And it's been an absolute blast.
It is a really fun group. I'm still pondering if we should trust the vampirates or not. But choices have been made, and we have to live with them now. To kind of return to the way we had been doing this before we got all excited about the live stream and talking about the live stream actual play, we're going to read some stories, mostly found on Reddit, but I can let y'all know the subreddits. To be clear, these are selected by our students, and you're also welcome to submit either real life stories, stories you find on the internet, questions we can respond to, that sort of thing. And I'm sure Atlas is going to help us out and get the link for that in the chat at some point in the stream. You're welcome to ask questions during too, but today we wanted to focus especially on what it's like being a woman in these spaces, both Dungeons and Dragons, but also things like Magic the Gathering, video games, just kind of this gamer world, because I think there are more of us than people realize. Sometimes we feel a little invisible, or we have to be really careful who we play with and things like that. But I want to start us off by responding to some of these stories, and then we can kind of branch off. Totally fine to have rabbit trails because I'm curious about your own experiences. So our students, thank you, Atlas, found a question on our D&D. The post was, is there a woman of D&D subreddit? Is there one? But what Atlas found interesting was a reply to that by usernames Deck the Halls with me. He wrote, the main reason I didn't join D&D for so long as I did is I couldn't find a single local play group that had at least one woman in it. And I wasn't comfortable being the only woman, to be honest. But now I'm in D&D groups, and they all have women in it, and it's so refreshing to see. And when I was DMing, I did have a woman in my group as well. It would be good because women do have to deal with extra barriers just entering D&D in the first time. So in other words, it would be good if there was a woman of D&D subreddit. So I'm curious, did y'all have a similar experience to this when you first get started? Like, do you know a lot of other women that play D&D, or how do you even find a group? I mean, Caitlin, I guess your husband, you know.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm just along for the ride. I think for me, it just reminds me that I often occupy a lot of spaces that are primarily male. So like music theory, mostly male. Um, when I was, a French horn player, mostly male. So I think I've just become a little inured to these spaces and the social dynamics, which is not an excuse nor uplifting, but it's more just like this comment really is a reflection on my day to day.
Yeah.
I started off playing Magic, and I was like in a local play group, like we'd get together and play Commander. Essentially the only woman in that space. Um, and in my very first D&D group, I was also the only woman. Like it took me a while to find, other women nerd friends. And it's been great now that I have, but yeah.
It's almost like if I'm hearing you right, you don't even have that expectation that there would be other women in the room, so you can't
Yeah,
like wait for it.
exactly. Thanks for filtering my nonsense.
No, I'm mirroring back because my brain is slow. So I want to make sure that I'm catching what you're saying.
Just like
I've realized
I've taught 2 exercise classes today, so my brain is varying
we're
degrees
doing great.
processing.
That's awesome. So when I was reading this, it occurred to me, Pocket, have you ever played D&D as the only woman at a table?
No, because when we had played originally, my streaming partner, who's my best friend, we did that like as an initiative kind of together, that we were something both had been interested in. I think she had also kind of like headed that too. And I was like, yeah, of course. Like I've always wanted to try that. So in tandem, like we both kind of got into it, started watching Critical Role and going from there. So that it's finding people to play with as far as D&D is concerned. I haven't branched out from the group that we have
Yeah.
between my streaming community and with you guys. That's pretty much it. I haven't really sought out local. I don't really have the time,
Yeah.
working full time, 2 kids, and all that life has to offer in that respect. So it's just not something that I needed to ever really look for. I was blessed enough that it was kind of hand delivered to me.
Yeah, it's interesting because once you started mentioning like you're not going to be able to go play in person, having care responsibilities, that is something that is really gendered. It's not that men don't also have care responsibilities, but I could see that whether it's children, parents, whatever it is, I could see it being harder for women to like have to go find a physical game. Most of my D&D has been online. I started off, it was a different TTRPG. It was the Star Wars Fantasy Flight. It was a little random. I was in a Facebook group. We were talking about Star Wars. Somebody's like, "Hey, I'm starting to run this thing and I could use more players. Anyone want to play?" And I have no idea what possessed me to say, "Yes, sure." And it was a group of all men, and I figured, well, it's on the internet. I'm not friends with them. They can't find me. Like that was literally the logic of it was like, I'm gonna give it a shot because going into a game store, I mean, even sometimes when I go into game stores to go look at dice or whatever, I don't know what I'm gonna be hit with. Usually just like asking if my boyfriend plays D&D or Warhammer, um, which is so strange on so many levels. But yeah, I think I mostly played with men, and it's funny because our group, the group that you're in, Pocket, is now majority women. But it's actually the descendant of that original group. It's been some people have to leave, some people come and join. Um, and I've watched the numbers kind of shift. I think it's rather fascinating. But yeah, I could feel this because I wouldn't have tried it if it wasn't online. I would have been a little bit nervous, I think, like this woman, which is odd because my training was as a trumpet player, so I was usually the only woman in the room. I was the only woman in the jazz band. I had to play on the men's JV soccer team as an 8th grader because they didn't have a women's JV soccer team. Like in a lot of hobbies, I would have been that, but I guess I didn't want to be in my spare time if it was going to be like a lot of strangers, maybe. I think that leads us to this next one. This is a reply to a post on our D&D that was titled, "Is Sexism a Problem in D&D?" So I do not know how to begin to pronounce this. The Akasha Rose? That sounds right. Atlas always puts it up. The Akasha Rose writes, "I'm a male DM with a predominantly female group. In the years we've played together, though we haven't encountered any aggressive sexism, more subtle dynamics have popped up at the table and needed to be handled. As the biggest example, when tables get loud, people start to talk over each other. Eventually, though, voices start to win out, and some people stop trying to jump in less frequently. So I've had female players come to me after the session feeling disempowered at the table due to people cutting them off or not listening to their contributions or plans. It's usually not conscious, but the same dynamics of gender roles that can disempower women in small ways find their way to tables. In my experience, as long as sexism in any degree exists, it will try to worm its way, to some degree, into any table. And it's the responsibility of every DM and player to make sure no one at their table feels uncomfortable or disempowered. In about 17 years of playing, I've only encountered a few instances of more aggressive sexism, and most were in settings outside of friend groups, DMing kids at a community center, playing in game stores, things like that. Sexist fears still exist, even if they are harder to find than they were years ago." This is quite a male take. I don't know, did any of that resonate with y'all or push back this idea of I really want to know about the sexism at the children's game, but maybe I don't.
I mean, I think it's just like anything. There's such a diverse amount of people that play D&D. That's gonna come to the table at some point.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way the world is. With the extreme diversity, especially since Critical Role made it a lot more mainstream, that a lot more people are getting involved with it, that you're going to see sexism pop up in that. And as society kind of transitions, I think you're still going to see that. I mean, I don't think that it will ever completely go away. I think it will always be there in some aspect, and I think it's kind of not only like the DM but other players of kind of everybody at the table to have kind of those discussions, and when those things pop up, is to be able to talk about it freely.
Yeah, that's a really good point. What are you
I
thinking,
mean,
Caitlin?
well, just that, like, I know that a lot of that post feels like it's just here's the stereotype of what a sexist interaction is, and like, let me explain to you how I've experienced it. But at the same time, I've also like been in those situations um, with you, Elizabeth.
That's
um,
why I was uncomfortable reading this because I wondered if Caitlin was going to bring this up. Sorry, go ahead, Caitlin.
I'm so sorry.
No,
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 but
please,
like
please.
it's, you know,
I feel like it was my story to bring up, weirdly enough. But yeah, go ahead.
I mean, we don't need to excavate this to its fullest depths, but just to say that, like, we played in a campaign with a person who, like, really does, you know, talk over people and interrupt and interject. And when the same thing happens to him, it's not okay. And really goes up to 11. right away with it. And especially also when it is female voices that try to get a word in edgewise. There's a real kind of pushback against that. And that group doesn't exist anymore because, you know, it stopped being fun for people. Yeah, that's top of mind in that question. I think it really is like, is there sexism in the world? Yes, and as Pocket was saying, therefore there's going to be, sexism in whatever pockets of the world you're particularly inhabiting at any
See
given
what you
point.
did there. As
Yeah.
Pocket was saying, pockets of the world. Never mind. Go ahead. Sorry, I should not have interrupted for that. That was not interruption worthy. Speaking of interrupting people,
It's okay. At least I know that you won't yell at me if I try, finish my sentence or whatever. But yeah.
no, I'm hearing this because I absolutely agree that we need to always assume that sexism is going to come in. Like I really like that idea that you have to actively be looking for it. You have to be on guard. You can't just assume I've got women at my table and they keep showing up, so everything must be fine. I think that's great. And yeah, Caitlin, it was really interesting. Um, the incident you're talking about, because I think what ultimately set it off was my refusal to be spoken
Yeah.
over and my refusal to let another woman be spoken over.
Absolutely.
Because there was one point where I just was like, no, I'm going to interrupt this man every time until we can hear what this other woman's saying. And in that case, it's interesting, right? I think, especially since we've had a lot of neurodivergent people on here, and I'm really bad about it. I don't always know when somebody's done. I interrupt and jump in, but it's kind of the what happens next, right? Do you keep insisting on it? Is it forceful? And I do like that he brings out this idea that it's not just people cutting them off, it's also them not listening to their contributions or their plans.
Mhm.
So I think there is that extent of giving each other grace where we can, but also recognizing once it gets bigger. The part that I'm not 100% sure about is when he's trying to act like this is just little. And I think it isn't because we've seen groups fall apart. Like
Yeah.
groups survive or they die based on how they handle situations like this because refusing to let somebody speak at the table and be part of the story is not little. Like that's what they're there for. That's what we're doing. And there is part of me that's really curious like what aggressive sexism is, and I think I get that feeling of this guy's saying so much that's right. But there's also moments where I start wondering, like, what does it take to get into the second category? Like I'm really curious what
What did the little kids do?
the little kids
We're all
do.
curious.
But I do like the point. He's like, this was not happening in friends group. This is like kind of the outside things, like going to a community center, going to game stores, which game stores can be lovely like centers of community, but they can also be horribly toxic, just depending on who's running them, like any other institution. Um, the problem is, yeah, unfortunately, you can still do quite a bit of business, apparently, without including women, which feels like a really bad business strategy to me, but what do I know? No, yeah. And I think the idea that like sexist fears still exist, even if they're harder to find than they were years ago, that ending sentence was the one that I was like, how much, give me $5 to find one. I can find one.
I think it's more that people like to think that they're not happening as opposed to that they aren't happening as much. I think there's a lot that we want to just like hand wave, and I think on both sides, right? I think there's definitely that like female urge to be like, no, I'm empowered, I'm equal, I could talk more if I wanted to. I'm just feeling kind of quiet tonight, right? Like I think there's absolutely that kind of like train of thought, as it were. It's like, oh wait, if I was actually given the space and supported, oh wow, I actually have tons to say and lots of questions to ask and like stupid shit that I want to do with my character. But yeah, I think it's so hard to untangle or like disentangle, like, yeah.
I mean, that brings up something for me though, because like think about Scott, Will, a lot of these guys that I DM with, that if they catch me not talking much, not engaging much, they check in just because I'm really annoying. It's really shocking if I'm being quiet for too long, I guess. And I love this idea that it's the DM's responsibility and the players. But the example you brought up, Caitlin, where I was like, I'm a player, I'm done with this, and I try to intervene, that kind of blew up. Not kind of,
Oh,
it
yeah.
did. So what do we do? Like, what does that look like? Because we can talk about, I mean, absolutely listening to each other, standing up, but like, can you think of any times either a DM or another player stood up for you, or you were able to find a way to support someone else at the table, whether it was a woman or anyone else that was kind of not being heard? Really putting everybody on the spot.
In my limited, I guess, experience, I haven't really had the opportunity to witness that yet. Our first little community group that we had, these are all people that I've known for years at this point, and we all get along really well. So that was a possibility coming into this new group, but I mean, as far as I can tell, it hasn't, happened yet. Is there
We
always a
can even talk
possibility? But
about, yeah, we can even talk about The Last Jedi now. Ed and I have buried the hatchet.
it's progress right there.
Progress. But that is, I mean, I kind of love that you haven't had the negative examples, so it's hard to know what exactly the positive is, because you're like, we're playing the game right? I love it.
Well, yeah, and I think that can also come with being very selective, like depending on your background, depending on where you come from, about putting up whatever boundaries you need to and being really selective of who you play with, because you can get into moments where you are really vulnerable. And if you're not comfortable with the people at the table, that's going to be really hard.
Absolutely.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
What do you think, Caitlin? Because you've seen it go really bad.
Yeah. I mean, like, most of my approach is sort of one-on-one behind the scenes, just like checking in with people, making sure that they're doing okay. Like, I remember having a pretty big debrief with you after that, the event, capital TE, as it were. But even other times during that campaign, like just sending notes to the other woman who was the other woman, as it were, who was playing, to be like, hey, like you were suggesting with like Scott DMing, like, you're kind of quiet tonight. How's it going?
Mhm.
Yeah. I have never been in like directly in that like center of conflict, at least with D&D. Magic. We'll get to magic.
We'll get to magic.
um, but yeah.
Got me scrolling to see if I want to skip the next D&D story, but yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
uh, with D&D, I feel like, yeah, just the nice thing about some of those like online scenarios is that you can just like send a private message or send a text and like make sure people are okay. And then when you can't handle the point that conflict has escalated to, you remove yourself from the situation, which is what I had to do that night, which is like totally wild.
Yeah. Number one, I love this idea that the added accessibility feature of online D&D is that it's easier to DM someone. Like, it's easier to check in privately when things, because if it's at the table, you can do it, but like somebody might catch,
It's so much harder.
texting. It's a little weird. This idea of removing yourself, right? I think we've both been in situations where it feels like it's not safe, or we're not having a good time, or we're thinking about, like, why am I doing this? But then you also feel that obligation to show up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you can talk more about like the right to walk away.
you always have the right to walk away. Like, that's just end of story, I
It's
think.
just, yeah. It's
Uh,
just funny because I think this is I don't know. Did you know that in your early 20s, Caitlin? Because I don't know that I did.
no,
Like,
absolutely not. But
like
no,
I feel like this is the why the 30s are going better moment.
yeah, 100% did not know that. Um, and I certainly wish that I had. Um, but I think it's interesting. It's like with great power comes great responsibility. Like once you realize that you can just walk away, it's also like, yeah, but I'm not gonna like leave so and so behind, or I don't want to just like, blow something. Which again,
Yeah.
every situation has their own yardstick to measure things by. Sometimes you do just need to like walk away and explode a thing. Um, but like, yeah, if if it is a situation where like you can stick around and you being there makes someone else's go of it better because that person doesn't feel like they can leave or something like this, then if you can mentally be a little bit of a life vest, then maybe try. Um, but at the end of the day, yeah. And I think there, I just hope that you have a situation in which you either have other players who can support you or a DM that supports your decision.
Yeah.
Because those are the things that, like being able to communicate why something isn't working for you. So,
And just like taking a break. I mean, don't underestimate what taking a break for 5 minutes, letting people have some conversations with the DM and like try to work through it. So I think there's sometimes it's like we feel like we need to be in it or we're out. And there's a lot to be said for, you know what? Maybe it's time for the session to end, or we
yeah.
take a break, or we step back, or we talk above table for a sec. Those can be really powerful tools to help moderate. Which, yeah, okay. This next one's wild. So it's just titled D&D Sexism. That's it.
Sounds fair.
Uh, from the Girl Survival Guide subreddit. So this is an original post. The username's Atheri13. A friend of mine's boyfriend got home from D&D, which we usually play all as a group, but this time it was just the guys. He told her, quote, he was glad they had this session without the girls so that there was no unnecessary feminism. That's the end of the quote. He doesn't understand why she's upset at that statement. How do we communicate that any amount of misogyny to anyone is harmful?
Uh,
I'm just watching you both process.
And now I feel like we're understanding why I felt a little weird setting Elizabeth up to repeat some of this stuff.
I just want to know what amount of feminism there was that was too much for these boys that like needed to have a night on their own to just like let it all go because they're so fucking manly that they just can't be contained anymore, you know? Like
It's just where like you just always want details when you're reading these stories. Like,
yeah.
what is unnecessary feminism? Like, were they worried about having enough, I don't know, pads and tampons for the
Yeah.
trek? Like, what was going on that was so scary?
Right,
I
like
just,
what was even the campaign? Like, what was the storyline that was being built that they had to have a separate, guys only session? Like, did it turn into like Game of Thrones? Like that they just needed that? I guess there's more. I need more context. I need more understanding.
while we're pondering this, there was a post in the chat. Literally had this conversation. I think this is Atlas. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think this was about the last story about the idea of walking away.
Yes,
Perhaps?
that's the timing.
Good. Okay. So from Jess, literally had this conversation with our friendly neighborhood charmfoolery earlier today. As a woman slash femme in the gaming space, things are weird sometimes and shouldn't be. I just love the idea that we can hold that intention that things are weird sometimes and shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
And now in relation to the unnecessary feminism.
It's just so weird. And like it just would make me never want to play with those guys again. Like if it's such a buzzkill for you to have to like have women at the table and like accommodate their presence. Like just
Do you
fine.
think they were treating NPCs inappropriately?
Probably.
Because that is a whole thread. I was wondering if it would emerge. Is the like I'm hoping y'all haven't experienced this. But when you're sitting there like at a D&D table and somebody's sitting next to you who seems like a decent human meets an NPC and like isn't doing this in a like I think I'm a bad guy way, but like is weird, like asking weird questions about their bodily proportions or like where you have these moments where you're like, okay, I'm all for playing characters that are making really questionable moral choices. There's room for that. But like it felt like a player, you're just like, you want to know how big her tits are. You want like just weird stuff. Weird stuff.
She's hot, right? I mean, it's like all of
I
the
think
men.
the issue hot, but it's like when you get like I think the one I'm thinking of it was how big were her tits, and then it started asking about her skin tone. So it was shitty. Don't worry about it. It's in the past. It's behind us. But it's one of those where it's like, what is happening? Have you ever encountered that? Because I feel like usually, I mean, the group that we're playing, like Pocket and I play in, it's a morally questionable crew, and it's space pirate adventures. I mean, we're gonna be a little weird, but like we know we're in on the joke. It's a joke. We know we're being weird. I don't know.
Like
I'm
kind of at this point, that's kind of the point, I guess, of our group is how chaotic can we be, but it's not in that kind of tone.
I'm wondering, is that the unnecessary feminism? I don't know.
I don't know, but I don't like it.
Atlas, please tell me in chat if anyone has a suggestion for what unnecessary feminism looks like. But I do like. Oh, go ahead.
The closest so far is Will. I don't have enough faces or palms to face palm hard enough.
But I think again, this is like this idea that right that like oh we have to like make all of these accommodations to make spaces better for in this case women, and then like we can't be like our manly men, which is like super healthy and totally natural and doesn't cause any harm to anybody, right? And it's like no, like making these accommodations, making this space a more welcoming space is actually like ideally better for everybody if like you could let yourself embrace that like it's a better space because you're not like I don't know. Fill in
Which
the
does get
blank.
to this last thing, like how do we communicate that any amount of misogyny to anyone is harmful?
Yeah.
I mean, like how are you inclusive of different ways people express their masculinity if you're too worried about the unnecessary feminism? But it's funny because it's so I almost said out of pocket. Oh my god. Don't do that, Elizabeth. That's too much. Anyway, but it's so out there that it's like hard to figure out that question of like, how do we communicate this is a bad thing?
And I just
It's like,
can you
what
imagine?
do you do? You just freeze.
Well, and I'm curious, like, how would either of you respond if you got like this message that, like, sorry, ladies are out this week. Like, we're going on a side quest for dudes.
I feel like we could get that message in both of the groups, like the one I play with Caitlin and the one with you, Pocket. But it would just be ridiculous, right? Like it would be, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. Like, how would you respond to this? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Mainly because usually I do get along better with men than I do with women in most situations. So I don't know if I just don't, if I'm just really lucky or I just don't even pay attention to the other side of it, or if I'm just so desensitized to it. I'm not even entirely sure.
The person I'm most likely to talk to from my high school years right now is someone who apparently bullied me incessantly when I was an 8th grader, and I never noticed. So she assumed that I was like a saint because I never reacted. And then she wanted to be my friend. And it was like a decade before I learned she was bullying me because I missed it. So I think that's a valid hypothesis. Or you just pick the right ones because it's not like you have to hang out with every man out there. Like most of the men that we play with aren't like this. Maybe that goes back to the like D&D as a social construct in the sense of if DMs are too ridiculous, they're not going to be able to find players. You know, if players are a mess, they're not going to be able to find a good home and a good fit. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I think I would just ask him to define unnecessary feminism.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just like what
Like,
does that look like? Like what kind of adventure are you seeking? Like is this like R-rated content that you're looking for?
I'm sorry, a lot of women will play that. Like, that's the funny part, right? Like, what is it? What, like any?
Yep.
Because the only thing I can think of is objectification, like dehumanization. But it could be something completely ridiculous. I have no idea. But it does at least like shift it back on them. Like, oh my gosh. What the thing I also find fascinating is just this story is him telling his girlfriend this. Could we appreciate that for a second? Like this is how he tells his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Hopefully she's moved on.
There would be
That's
a
all
lot
I've
of
got.
a lot of questions at that point.
Also from Will in chat, if I had to hazard a guess, I am supposing towards unnecessary feminism. It is applying a filter to what you do and say when you're around women.
Yeah.
Oh, and a much longer one from Jess. I have a feel-good version of the boys' night only thought. This happened in high school at my board game club. The teacher said the night was canceled, but really privately invited all the boys. The girls found out the next week. He did it specifically to talk to all the boys about how to not be capital M men TM about it, how to be welcoming to us, what's inappropriate, etc. It was the right intent, but weirdly executed on the surface if you're looking at it from the outside.
Kind of like us having to leave the boys to talk about our changing bodies. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. But that sense of, it's educational content.
Mhm.
Interesting. I could see that. We got something from Magic, Caitlin.
Let's go.
It's from the Magic subreddit, Magic TCG subreddit, but it's a little bit more big picture, but then I do want some like specific Magic stories. This is called Stepping Away, and it's a reply to the thread Stepping Away by, I'm gonna guess, Dogfu. I don't know. Alice will show it. I used to run a store about 15 years ago. We would have women come in on occasion. Actually had 2 regulars that were female. We had a very pretty woman come in to play 2 times. She was super nice and kind. The shy nerds started acting normal after the initial shock and everything was fine. Except there was one guy who would not stop flirting with her. She rejected him subtly a few times, and finally someone said, "Dude, just leave her alone, we're playing." He responded with, and again, we do have a warning on the stream. He responded with, "I'm just trying to get my dick wet," in front of her and a room full of other men. Had no idea why I kicked him out immediately. I apologized profusely after, and she said she was fine. Unfortunately, she never came back. I hope she found a safe place to play, and I'm so pissed I'm part of that memory.
Mm.
That's so cringy on so many levels.
Seriously. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all that that person never came back.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not just that somebody said this, right? I mean, I think it's hard to be on social media or anything and not get like absolutely wild DMs from people you don't even know. It's that somebody, I mean, that's bad enough, but there's the add layer of like this person felt comfortable saying this in this space
Mm-hmm.
and seemed flabbergasted that they were asked to leave. So that's part of what makes me feel like it wasn't just one person. Like, yes, there was a response, but the response was surprising. Like it feels like to call back to the earlier one, the sense of like, oh, there's, kind of some sexism in the air, but like aggressive sexism is rare. I don't know.
Yeah. There's definitely like there is an environment that this sort of, banter is fine. And then yeah, what you're saying, like the person is surprised that they're given the boot, and it's like, well, what else happens? I don't know.
Well, and like she wasn't listened to. A guy says, "Leave her alone, we're playing." And then he responds, and it's not just like, oh, it's profane or whatever. It's dehumanizing, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like
Like
I'm not.
yeah,
I
go
don't
ahead.
understand why there wasn't an intervention earlier on.
But I like even if he had said it nicer, it's still really weird. Like it's a weird thing to say. It's not about her as a human at all, which
Yeah.
adds these extra layers. I don't know. I don't want to ask stuff like this. Like, have you heard of things like this in Magic? Like, what's your experience been?
So mostly my experience is like men being sore losers to comfortable when they're in the space and doing well, you know? Um, like I've had plenty of opponents who I've seen, it's especially interesting as a social experiment because I do a lot of these things with my husband. And so when I see the same person like lose to Scott and they're just like chatty still and like there's still banter, and then I get paired with that person and they start losing and they just shut down. Like there is no more talking. There is no more like, oh, hi, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, now we are just playing a game. And like that like internal monologue of like, you have to win this game. Why are you losing this game to this woman? Is I've seen it so many times. It's so frustrating and disappointing. And usually if I beat them, there's some kind of backlash at the end of the game. They'll say something, some kind of one-liner like, oh, well, you just won because like my mana didn't work or blah blah blah. And it's like, well, because you built your deck poorly so that your mana didn't work. Like that's not my fault that you're trying to splash.
I love you, Caitlin. I love you
Like,
so much.
it's just like I remember one time I had this interaction with this person and I basically just cut them off from berating me. I was like, I don't have to listen to this shit, and I got up and walked away and reported them to the owner of the game store. Like uh, again, to go back to like when can you leave? You can always leave, and you can also always tell people when you're leaving that they suck.
I love you so much. That's amazing. Have you ever had anyone get kicked out? Have you ever been in a situation where someone was like kicked out of a space like that?
So I did have one encounter. They weren't kicked out, but they were given basically like their final warning. Like if they do something like this again, then they are kicked out. And I believe the person is now banned from the store. But I wasn't there for like the banning episode.
I feel like we could have a lot of fun just like going around visiting game stores, pulling the sexism out of the sexist so everybody can see it.
Yeah,
Moving
no,
on.
it really is wild, right? Like it's one thing when you're there and you're just like cute and you don't know stuff, but then when you actually start winning games, like
Yep.
people's demeanor starts changing around you. And like there was one a game store we went to in Indiana. Like I remember this palpably over the course of the night. Like as the rounds progressed and I kept getting like, paired against winners because I was winning, and like people just starting to like, oh. And then at one point, like some guy was just like weirdly talking up his friend, like, oh yeah, you're paired against him. I was like, so what? I beat him.
Oh my gosh, that was the best timing. Oh my gosh.
Um,
Because I wonder if it's like how much of this is. Am I gonna embarrass my brother? Yeah, sure. Okay, so my older brother, who definitely gave me garbage when I was still playing Pokemon cards when I was in the 6th grade, just won a local Pokemon tournament in Philadelphia last week. He got into it when his kids did. And my niece, who's hanging out with me, won 3rd place in that one. It's only a matter of time before she destroys him if she hasn't already. There's always a moment with Pokemon cards where I really, and again, only because of things that happened decades ago that I won't let him forget because that's how siblings relate sometimes. I just want to be like, so how many kids did you beat? Because when you do Pokemon, like you might be paired up with an 8-year-old. The thing is, the 8-year-olds sometimes win easily and just stomp all over him because like 8-year-olds can play games. But I wonder. I wish I knew more about it because I wonder if sexism's as big of a thing in Pokemon, like if you compared them relative to Magic, or if there's a built-in like if you have to respect a child, maybe I don't know.
I don't know.
Not saying not saying so much that like I'm not trying to compare women and children here, but more the sense of because there's a wider range of potential opponents, does your ego have to handle losing to people that would otherwise like threaten your fragile masculinity? I don't know.
I don't know, but one time Scott beat a kid at a game store, and then like 10 minutes after the match, the parent came up and talked to him. Apparently, it happened. The kid's retelling, and like, what did you do to my kid? And I was like, I just won. Like I.
Scott is it's so funny because Scott is such a sweetheart. I can't see him hurting good kids' feelings on purpose.
Yeah, I
But
think it was
Scott
like
also likes rules, so I could also see Scott like rules lawyering the kid to death.
I think it was something like he might have offered to prize split, and the kid was like, no, and then Scott won. He got all of the packs, and the dad was like, doesn't my,
Oh,
yeah.
but it was really funny because I'm like, there are these two sides of
Oh,
Scott.
there are two wolves.
Which one is winning? Oh my goodness. But yeah, I mean, do you have to deal? I imagine if Pocket, when you're streaming, you have to ban people sometimes and kick people out.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Does it feel good? Like hitting that button? We haven't had to do it with OTG yet. 'Cause nobody
Now,
knows we're here.
now it does.
Yes, we have.
Like,
Oh, we have. Thank you, Atlas. My students are so good. I don't even know what they're protecting me from.
well,
They also have
moderator
to teach me how to
tools
look at Twitch.
are a lot better now than they used to be. Like about kind of bringing that stuff like forward before it even like really makes it into chat. Whereas like before, you could get. I've gotten DMs. There's been stuff on the live stream. There's been harassment. Like you name it. Like a friend of mine that like had death threats, and we don't even like do hardcore like Call of Duty or any of that kind of stuff. Like we mainly played. We crocheted.
How dare you?
We play Zelda. Like
Yeah.
like there was some like I don't know. It's like she used to play like WoW at one point and some of the like other stuff. But like no, we would get that kind of stuff all the time. And then eventually we just kind of started I don't know if this makes us good people, but like playing with it. Like being like, okay, like this is so unoriginal. and just like calling people out on it and just being like,
Yeah.
this is not special. Like, you are not special. We have heard this comment hundreds of times. Like, if you're gonna come at us like that, like, at least be creative. And like, sometimes we would entertain like the more creative, like we knew what was happening, but we kind of had fun with it because we're like, you're kind of just a piece of shit. But hey, if you're gonna be entertaining about it, like, all right, we'll go back and forth a little bit. We're gonna see where this goes. Ultimately, they would get banned, but
Yeah.
oh yeah, I would love to go
That's
look
amazing.
at like our list of people that have been banned. Because like we also never had moderators because there was two of us, so we had, double the eyes on it. So we saw everything. There was always so much. So much.
Well, and I imagine the more successful you are, it's not just that you're more visible. There is a direct impulse to treat women like garbage when they're a threat or when they're successful and when they're
Well,
yeah,
and
like if they can't really get a rise out of you and they just get mocked.
right, but because being, a small streamer, that experience isn't there. That ability to tune it out or the eyes on chat to get it out like immediately is also not there. So that is more, I feel, suspect to some of that more interaction because there's less eyes on it. Like if you're a big
Interesting.
time streamer, you've got moderators watching out for that stuff. Like you have people specifically keeping an eye on that for you.
Yeah,
Whereas the
whereas
small
we have
guys
it
don't.
because we're affiliated with a university. Vaguely. And in an indefinable way. We've been lucky to have Atlas and Dakota helping us out because gosh, I can't imagine dealing with that. Although it's also interesting because when you're streaming, it's like you're playing, but you're also the one building the community and
Mhm.
trying to control who comes in your door. I mean, were you doing most of that on Twitch? Did you also set up a Discord? Like, how did you manage? Because it almost
Y-
makes you more analogous to the game owner in that story too. It's like you're both.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we didn't have a Discord for a while. Like when we first started, we were super intentional about everything to do with our stream. We had both
Yeah.
streamed separately before, so we weren't, newbies going into this. We were extremely intentional. And it was the same thing with our Discord of you didn't get into it like just from being in the community, just coming and hanging out with us on this live streams of you had to be there a while. You had to earn the right to get like we used like our channel points that you had to earn enough points from being in the channel and chatting in the channel to turn in your points to be able to get there. We found that was a great way to get people that were in the community that wanted more to be a part of it because the people that are going to be doing and saying those things aren't going to hang around. They're not going to
Yeah.
waste their time to just hang out for I forget even like what we ended up making it, but it was a while to get access to that, to get access to get us.
That makes sense because then you're building something intentionally. The people that are sticking around share at least some of the values, right? Although I do kind of want to circle back because Caitlin, you don't really play video games much, right?
Mm-mm.
So when you mentioned like not playing Call of Duty, I think this is an interesting aspect to it. I would play a lot more video games if I had a lot more time. But also if I had more adaptive gaming equipment and blah blah blah. There's a disability angle to that too. But I had to learn young in the dark ages. I love how you can just be like ASL and tell how old somebody is now. Um, not to play any video games that required voice. Like just not to, and why my gamer tag is usually musicologist or musicologist, like a couple of things, so that it's not gendered. And it's also fun because nobody thinks it's a real job. So it would never occur to them that this is an actual musicologist because they don't know that musicologists exist. For context, since Caitlin and I glossed over something, music theory is a very male dominated field. Musicology graduates majority women for PhDs, but the majority of jobs go to men still. But theory, it's what are the numbers in theory? Do you remember?
You know, they're getting closer. They're getting
Oh,
close enough
good.
to the point where like it's, you know, becoming musicology pathetic that so many more of the like marquee jobs just are going to men.
There was one point where it was like, what, 15% of music
Yeah,
theory professors were women. It was
it
a,
was wild. But I think that now it's getting closer. It's interesting when you go through though and you break down by like, okay, who's, you know, full versus tenure track versus like
yeah.
contingent. And it's like the inverse of, you know, demographics, and then it gets to contingent and, you know,
Wild.
flips back.
But yeah, I bring this up just because, um, like I was usually one of the only women in the room in my real life. So I thought I could handle online gamer spaces. And like the first time I slipped up and someone realized they were playing with a woman, it was like all hell broke loose. And I was really young at the time, not used to it. It was rough. And I think it does impact what games we play, but also just the visibility, right? Because I talk to men all the time who think that video games are fundamentally for men and boys, when if you start using definitions that are reasonable for what a video game is, it's majority women and girls. Um, because they want to be like, oh, well, real video games don't include these cozy ones. Real
Mhm.
video games aren't played on your cell phone, except now you can play Call of Duty and nonsense yourself. You know what I mean? Like they'll define it as these ones, and they can police those spaces
Mhm.
by being jerks. So I'm much more likely to play single player games or games where it's only going to be um, with people I know. Um, like even if I'm playing Marvel Rivals, and that one's hysterical because you're gonna have like a 5-year-old just popping into chat. Um, but like I end up with my nephew on my cell phone, and we have the chat turned off. Um, at the same, that's really not an efficient way to communicate. But like, yeah, I don't. Have you had experiences with that at all, Pocket, or did you mostly stick to games that would be safer? Just because I don't know. Like, how did you pick what games you play? Did you ever encounter that?
We mainly just stayed to games that we liked. I mean, the two of us are goofballs in our own right, and put the two of
Mm.
us together, and it's ridiculousness. um, no, like we played games that we liked. Like
Yeah.
I played through Skyward Sword because I never played it as a kid, which is very odd. There's not many Zelda games that I have not played. Like we played through that. We played through like our first game that we streamed was like Overcooked. So like
Oh yeah,
we're
that's a
both
great one.
giant Stardew Valley fans, and like
Yeah.
working with the two of us together, it was a great like introduction. But like we just played games that we liked. We're like, you know, we want the people that like these things too to be in like our community. Like we weren't ever streaming to like be big in the streaming. We would just had a lot of fun, and
I love that.
that was it. We just wanted
Yeah.
to go have fun and share our stupid our stupid humor with anybody that wanted to listen.
Well, and if anybody like wants to tell me that Overcooked is like not a real game like Dark Souls, that game can be so stressful. Number one. Number two, we shouldn't be measuring games by like there's no one metric to measure whether something is a real game or not. But like I played Overcooked with I think it was Overcooked. Um, unless it was like a knockoff, which is also possible under these circumstances. We had an adaptive controller set up. So like one person was playing normally and the other set of controls was split among a few people with disabilities. So we were trying to coordinate, and you can't speak. You have to just start reading each other's minds, basically, to know what's going to happen. And it was chaos, but it was fun. Like it devolved into giggling. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, there's so many great games out there. So you never really tried to play one of like the big, I
No,
don't know, Call of
because
Duty-ish or whatever, because you just weren't interested.
yeah, like I've played first person shooters. I've played Call of Duty. Like I've played a lot. Like I've never like, but they never really interested me. Like
Mhm.
I played Diablo for a while, and then it just got so repetitive that it was like I'm kind of done because I'm bored.
Yeah.
Like I'd play through the storyline because I like stories, but then that would kind of be it. But yeah, I played League of Legends for a while, not on stream, I don't think. But even that was just it just too much. I'm like, I just want to play the game to have a good time. I don't want to feel that I have to perform at any kind of level to meet someone else's expectations of what I should be able to do.
Hmm.
Yeah, I really am in it for the story, like 9 times out of 10. It does feel good when you have like a hard boss fight and you have to strategize and you work on it and you practice and then you get it. Like that feels great. But that's not the only thing I want to be doing. So that resonates with me quite a bit.
The only small thing I would like to add in this is, so I did, like when I was younger, I played some video games, but I kind of felt before. But like GoldenEye, like I remember me and like some of my close girlfriends, like we would have sleepovers and like order pizza and like we would just kill each other all night. Like it was,
It was Halo for me, but yes.
yeah. Um, it's just like the thing that pings for me is this idea of like as soon as a space kind of gets expanded to be more inclusive, people immediately come back and start putting guardrails back in. And I'm not super involved in the like video game community version of this, so I find it really interesting talking about like, oh, like this isn't a game, this doesn't count, simply because it doesn't, meet this mold because oh, we had to keep this space delineated. I don't know.
An interesting.
Go ahead, Alice.
An interesting question that's kind of related from Will in chat. I have a question for anyone who is a parent of a young girl. Do you think it's better to coach them to suppress their identity online, or let them be themselves and teach them how to handle online bullies and trolls?
That's a really good question, Will.
It's a very specific one. And coming of a parent of two girls, very applicable. I think it's a mixture of both to know, to start understanding of when you can kind of divulge that information, but to also like let them know you don't know who's on the other end of the keyboard. You don't know who's on the other side. Like we've tried to stress that with our oldest because we're trying to give her a little bit more freedom being online. We still don't do like there's no chatting in games. Like you don't know who is on the other side. And especially with how scary AI is, I was like, I don't care if they sound like it. You don't know who is on the other side. And that's the same for really anything. So you just have to be really careful of what information you divulge to people.
I've read horrific things about Roblox and the fact that Roblox continues to be so prevalent. And now that you can go to Chat GPT and be like, how do I say this so it sounds like an 8-year-old? And that Chat GPT then gets fed off of conversations 8-year-olds are having on the internet. Like it's wild. I think the biggest problem, this has got to be hard, right? Because as a parent, you're never going to want your daughter exposed to this, I'm pretty sure. But like the biggest problem is that the minute that someone knows that they're talking with a woman or a girl, you can get like incredibly explicit sexual messages back, rape threats and death threats. Like that is something, it doesn't happen all the time. I don't want to act like that's the only thing that happens. It's not true, but it's in the mix. So I feel like some of this is the maturity of the kid, certainly, like the avenue that you're in. I love the idea of like just remembering you don't know who's there. You don't know who this person is. I think like focusing on games where you don't need to chat and don't need to talk until they're old enough that they're a little more able to make those decisions. An easy way to test it, frankly, is if you have time, which I know not everybody does, like make an account on that game and give it like a feminine sounding name and see what the environment's like. I hate to say that, but like they don't even have to hear your voice sometimes. Like sometimes it's just, you might get a sense of what that is like. I think there's also potentially a difference between I wonder if for a kid, the overall conversation about like we don't want to give out a ton of personal information to strangers is a little bit encompassing of the like we don't need to tell strangers anything about our gender or whatever. You know what I mean? Like if I'm not a parent, so I don't know if there's like an age appropriate way that those two things kind of go together until they're older. I really wish it was better. That's the thought that I keep coming to. I wish we weren't having this conversation at all.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Yeah.
It's definitely it's a hard topic to think about because I think about when I was a teenager and we had our first computer and AOL chat rooms were a thing, and being a kid and being dumb and not having any of those tools myself, nothing ever happened to me, because I think it was still very new. But like remembering the shit I used to do and being like, oh my God, if my daughter was doing that now, it'd be like, oh my God. Like
Skype roulette.
never did that. It was more of just like going
I mean,
into
I didn't do
rooms and
that, but that was
chatting.
one of those like
But that was
moments
one of
where I'm like, who came up with like there
who
can't
thought that was a good
possibly
idea. Just kind of like we say this like in the crocheting world too, of like just because you can make it doesn't mean you should.
that.
Indeed.
Oh my gosh, yes. But I guess you don't even really get to deal with that question much for hobbies like magic. What would you recommend, like if there was a young girl who wants to get into this?
Um, don't take any cues from the art for women as to what you should look like in the
We didn't even get into that topic, and that's a big one. Oh my God.
Um, yeah. I think it's unfortunately a lot of the same stuff that you're probably, I mean, I don't know. I don't have a female child, but a lot of the stuff that you might be reinforcing at home writ large, right? Like, hey,
You don't have a male child either. I mean, you have a
yeah,
male cat, but it was
yeah.
really funny to me that you said it that way because then I realized you have a
No,
male child. It's just a feline male child.
my brain was just like very specific, like this is
No,
the
you're
question.
good.
I don't respond. Don't you tell me that my cat is not my child.
I would never tell you that.
um but anyways, all this to say, like things that I remember just, like going through the world. Like you can be smart in school. You don't just like have to be dumb, even if boys pick on you for being smart or like, call you names or whatever. I think unfortunately you're sort of reinforcing those messages. Like this is a space that you can be in. And I think as a parent, I would absolutely um like craft that space and like collect people to like if my kid was interested in getting into this game to learn how to play it in a very like pruned community, and before going to the game store would have like a pretty big conversation about like, well, depending on what age they are, I guess, but at a certain point, yeah, like you're gonna come up against this stuff.
I do like the idea of like, if at all possible, get into the hobby with your kid so you can understand it. Because you can't control their environment forever, but I'm thinking less about gender right now and more about folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities and like how you build independence and how, because it can be really scary if somebody's not going to pick up on a lot of danger signs as quickly. Like letting them wander out in the world, like aren't you responsible? Like you're responsible for them, like how you navigate that. And a lot of the really successful independent living models for folks in the IDD community, they center on like figuring out your safe network and then growing it, like, and then developing it and figuring out where you're safe. And if you're in trouble, who can you trust? And like starting with a circle and building out your circle and understanding who you can trust with what. It seems like it's just a good model for human development in general. So yeah, I love that. Like if you can play the game with your kid, great. Because then you're also there to help them process when weird things inevitably happen. And that is everything. Because you're not going to be able to protect them, unfortunately, from experiencing bad stuff, but you can help them learn how to, minimize it, sure, but then, break it into chunks they can handle and model how to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's also, the willingness to listen and having that relationship with your child that they can come to you with this weird stuff, because if they're not, they're handling that on their own, which is far scarier than broaching the subject. Like, is it a comfortable conversation to have and like to know that your child is hurting because of this or is having weird feelings because of this? Yeah, that really sucks. But at least they're being honest with you about it and they're coming to you for help, which is miles away from like what I feel like my generation kind of grew up with. Number one, we didn't have the tools for it because our parents didn't have the tools, especially for online stuff. But of keeping that conversation and keeping that line of communication open, I think is also super key. That if they're going to come to you with the weird stuff, with the uncomfortable stuff, you can at least talk about it.
There's another piece to this too. I don't want this to sound like a cop out at all, but not divulging your gender identity isn't necessarily hiding who you are. I'm trying to be careful with how I say this, but there's no way I'm going to say this in a way that makes sense the first time. But I mean, I think about how, like, I was playing a game that was like iOS based, and you build up kind of guilds and you communicate by text messages, right? And my gender was never the topic of conversation, which made everybody assume that I was male, and they might use male pronouns for me. I wasn't going to correct them. It's fine. I invited a family member into the group who chose to say things, and everything shifted. Like it was disappointing. I ended up having to like kick people out of a group that I'd like been with for years because they turned out to be jerks. Hated that bit. But I remember there was one really complicated feeling I had where it was like I felt much more free to be who I was before they had that piece of information. So, I think there is a space here where it's okay to teach girls like they can be who they are playing video games, but it's also safe to not disclose that one particular piece of information. That's complicated. I know that's complicated. I'm sitting here thinking through all the implications of me saying like, you can be who you are if you just ignore your gender. That's weird. Like, but you know what I mean? Like, we also don't disclose our physical locations. It could be some information that we learn and model with the kids to like, you don't have to present this stuff.
It seems more like a thing that you appreciated because it saved you from all the backlash that occurred once you identified as female. Like, I I don't know.
It's sexist. It's acknowledge it's going, this whole thing is sexist, it's broken, and I can't do anything about it.
Yep.
But I do wonder how, like, if we want to always bring every part of who we are into some of these spaces, it's gonna mean we can't be in those spaces.
Yep.
So you are negotiating this. Do I want to be in this space a little bit? Do I like it's a mess. It's a bunch of imperfect situations, which is why I think it's so great. There are games, there are communities, there are spaces that aren't like this. I think it's going to be hard as a parent to do, but hopefully rewarding to be able to think through it with the kid. Like, hey, so this game might be fun, but it also has the scary component. Is this game interesting? I don't know. Like to kind of find who you are, so it doesn't feel quite as limiting. Yeah, I don't know. You can't do that at a game store.
Mm-mm. You're just there.
You're just there. Would you recommend that they? I mean, do you feel better going into a new game store with Scott?
Yes. Absolutely.
To maybe like bring a friend is just okay, men. There's a reason we go to the bathroom in groups.
Yeah.
Sorry. The fact that this is like a mystery to them, I find really fascinating. Like, we like each other, generally. It's a safe space, generally. And also, when we go around by ourselves and bad things happen, you blame us for going by ourselves. But then we go places in groups, you make fun of us. What? I mean, we
Yep.
don't need your approval, but like, it's not as funny as you think it is, stand-up comedians. So yeah, bathrooms and Magic the Gathering in groups. That's what I'm gathering.
Game stores in general.
Gosh, that was not insightful. That was not insightful at all. Sorry. No, I mean, I think the big takeaway that we're here, and I like that we're here. And I also like how much power when men just stand up to each other, like how much power that holds.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's boys' night, but you don't have to let feminism die. You can be the unnecessary feminism you want to see in the world, men.
Yes.
I'm going to be thinking about that for a long time.
I just still have so many questions about that one. No, and also, so like, one of the most popular formats of Magic right now is Commander, and I'd be really curious to know how much that has to do with the fact that like a lot of people just play it at home, and you don't have to like you can build your Commander deck, and you don't have to like have 8 people to field a draft, or like you don't have to run a standard tournament and like stay up to date with like current legal cards or whatever. Like you can just be at your kitchen table with whoever you want. Again, that like self-selecting who you play with.
It's really interesting. Because that would be similar to like wondering if online D&D, one of the reasons that it remains popular post-pandemic is because it's safer than wandering into a game store.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, there we go. Future topics of conversation. Yeah, any last thoughts? Things we didn't get to that you want to say? Definitions of, or examples of unnecessary feminism? It should be a hashtag. I'm pretty sure. I'm sorry, I'm completely hypnotized by Gorthy.
I know. He's being a goober.
He just matches the piano. Very.
The other thing that I feel like you can't not acknowledge about game stores though is that like they're just not aesthetically often nice places to be. Like they're stinky and kind of dirty and like places that you're like, do I want to use the bathroom? Is it gonna be gross?
There you go, doing an unnecessary feminism. I feel like there's someone out there that thinks like hygiene and cleaning
Is
and
unnecessary
disinfecting shared spaces is unnecessary feminism. It's
Yeah,
gotta exist.
100%.
Well, I mean, think about all the reminders that they have to give people before cons of like, wear deodorant, take a shower. Like, this should be basic stuff.
Yep.
So next time we make a set of rules, we just hashtag unnecessary feminism it. Necessary feminism.
Yeah.
No, this is not feminism. This is just basic people.
Yeah, right. But I think that's also one of those, like, all these, I don't know, so many like little things that go into the trope, like who is this space for and who feels uncomfortable in this space.
Well, and it can be aggressively so, right? Like if they know if their version of toxic masculinity includes smelling like that and not bathing, it's also a way of you like having a sensory barrier around a space.
Mhm.
This is going to sound like it's not connected, but it is. I have a friend who wrote her dissertation and has an upcoming book, and part of what she argues is that like parades that were done in like early modern Europe, where you would have saints toted around and songs sung by clergy and things like that, were creating sonic spaces where the mundane world was made sacred, like just by the sound of these chants like moving through the city. But now picture it as BO. And instead of making it sacred, masculine.
Yeah, that tracks.
Like, you know, there are things like that. But more than joking about that, it does speak to you want your store to be more inclusive. Clean it. But also have, you know, size inclusive chairs, and like there's a lot of cool things that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Or have a plant. Make it welcoming.
Imagine plants. Little crochet corner. Frankly, if you had a crochet corner where people could watch matches, you'd make a lot of money. You could even sell some yarn. Like there's a
Yeah.
huge intersection between people that do like fabric arts and gamers. This is not acknowledged enough. And I think part of that intersection is neurodivergence.
I also
There's a lot
find
of
sometimes like the tag along partner very weird, like the girlfriend who comes and like watches all of her partner's matches and like follows. Which isn't to say that like they're not having a decent time or whatnot, but part of me is like, I want to learn how to play. Like,
I mean, you know, if you want to play Magic at Unplugged in the Access Forward Gaming Lounge, let me know. I think it would be so cool to have a space where it's just intentionally, we're gonna play Magic the Gathering. If you're new, you're gonna learn. We're not gonna be jerks.
yep. No. I gotta get my shit together on that one.
We got time. But that does segue me into a few things. One, Nomnivore Games, amazing. Met Derek and Kate, who drove all the way to where I live, like out of their way to pick up stuff. So you can get Open the Gates gaming decision guides, which Atlas and Gustavo and my niece and I cut out. Takes forever. The decision guides, but also our cute little business cards at Gen Con at the Nomnivore booth. You'll also be able to find them inside the Guardians mental health kits. We are gearing up for Unplugged, so if you're interested in being a storyteller in the Packs Together intersection or the Access Forward Gaming Lounge, those applications are due the 14th, I think at 5 p.m. So August 14th at 5 p.m. If you're proposing a panel, that deadline is earlier. It's on the 7th, and we are going to have some panels. One proposed by us at OTG. Dots is going to do some stuff. Should be a good time. So keep an eye on Unplugged. Like, you can subscribe. I know this is in the chat, but keep in mind if you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you get one free Twitch subscription per month. So you can give it to us when you don't have another person that you want to subscribe to, but that money is going to help support us as we go to Unplugged. I'm trying to remember if there's any last minute things we should say. I feel like I'm saying the things. I think beyond that is just if you have a story, if you have a topic, a question you want us to debate, whether it's very rules lawyery or whether it's big picture, please feel free to submit it. And I will say next week, we're going to have a special guest who is on their side. So we're hoping for a nice inclusive chat experience, but he will not be able to see the chat. But we're going to talk a little bit more about family-friendly D&D and kids in tabletop gaming, so that should be a particularly fun one. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us.
Bye.
Ah.